In this video, I'm only going to be talking about the 4-star polearms. If you don't have any 4-star polearms or 5-star polearms, I would recommend the white tassel, but I wouldn't recommend leveling it high or pouring resources into it because the base attack will not scale anywhere near where the 4 or 5-star weapons will. I would not use it as a permanent weapon for Xiao. The first one on my top 3 4-star polearms list is going to be the Blackcliff Pole. That's because this is in the Starglitter exchange shop right now. If you haven't gotten it and you have enough Starglitter, I would get this. It's going to be a very good, viable option for Xiao. In my opinion, this is what I'm going to be using at least because I only have a few polearms. I have this one, I think the Favonius Lance and the Dragonspine Spear, and this one far outscales the other two. After the Blackcliff Pole, I'm going to be talking about the Battle Pass weapon as well as the Crescent Pike. But for me personally, if I didn't have this and I had a Crescent Pike, I would probably use that because I've already used 2 of my Battle Pass rewards to use for the Black Sword for Kaching. So again, this is all just my personal opinion, but for me, it's going to be Blackcliff Pole first in this case. So it scales with crit damage. You can see it gets up to 55% crit damage, which is going to be really good. Has a pretty decent base attack compared to some of the other 4 stars that we'll see. And its effect is pretty good. It's after defeating an enemy, attack is increased by 12% for 30 seconds. This effect has a max of 3 stacks. So essentially, you can have a max of 36% attack boost for 30 seconds at refinement rank 1. Refinements could be another reason why you end up switching to another polearm. If you have a higher refined Crescent Pike, for example, you might want to use that over this. I just think crit damage is something that scales extremely hard no matter who you're using it on. And Xiao's going to be made for crit rate already, so he's going to be prepped for this. So the second polearm on my list would be the Deathmatch. I put it at number 2 because it's not completely free to play. It requires the Battle Pass, which is $10. It has really consistent damage numbers though, but as you can see down here, it lacks in the base attack department. And its crit rate scales to 36.8%. But the ability here is actually very, very good because of its versatility. Whereas the Blackcliff Pole requires you to defeat an enemy, this one actually is just the presence of enemies. If there's 2 or more enemies nearby, attack is increased by 16%, defense is increased by 16%. If there's less than 2 enemies nearby, attack is increased by 24%. This actually ends up scaling super, super hard if you have the Battle Pass multiple times and you've refined this weapon. At refinement rank 5, it can scale a lot better. It'll increase the attack by 32% with 2 or more enemies, in defense as well, and it'll scale attack to 48% if there's less than 2. It's a very good polearm when multiple enemies are present. It's even stronger against single enemies like bosses. Again, I'm not going to use this one because I've gotten the Black Sword twice for my Kaching already. If you have the Deathmatch already, I'd probably use that. I think the Deathmatch and Blackcliff are kind of tied for first in terms of their actual damage numbers. For my third option for the top 3 4 stars, I would recommend the Crescent Pike. Everyone kind of already knows how strong this already was on Zhang Ling. I think it can also be very viable on Xiao. Initially, I thought that the Crescent Pike wasn't going to be very good on Xiao because of the physical damage bonus and the fact that Xiao's E and ultimate ability only use the Animo element and have no physical damage. However, if you think about the damage you can do in between the uses of his E ability, in between those dashes, it can actually be very strong with the right artifact set. Like, for example, you could use a 2-piece Bloodstained Chivalry for physical damage bonus and a 2-piece Gladiator set for the attack bonus. And you can also see here that the Crescent Pike actually scales with really high base attack for 4-star. It's about 100 higher than the Deathmatch and like 50 higher than the Blackcliff. So this one actually scales very well. It's still not as good as Blackcliff or Deathmatch just because of the substat is crit damage and crit rate. But the Crescent Pike can be extremely powerful, as most people know. And in between those dashes, you'll be gaining those elemental particles to boost his physical damage. And if you had a high refinement on the Crescent Pike already, I would heavily consider this for Xiao's build. However, like for my build, I'm probably going to be trying a 2-piece Viridescent and 2-piece Glad starting out just to see how that works out. But this could be a very, very viable build if you weren't going to build him for his Animo damage, but rather for physical damage. But with the way his kit is right now, I think I wouldn't personally build it that way, but it's still doable. So in summary, I think that both the Blackcliff Pole and the Deathmatch are going to be the two best 4-star polearms for Xiao. The Blackcliff being the free-to-play version, and Deathmatch being costing $10 in the battle pass essentially. Many of the other free-to-play and craftable polearms, the reason they're kind of held back is because they require more prototypes if you choose to refine them. So like the Crescent Pike, for example. If you have a lot of prototypes, then maybe you'd want to use those over these two, but I still think that these two are going to create the highest damage output for Xiao in terms of 4 stars. And if miHoYo increases the prototype drop rates in the future, then the best in slot weapons for Xiao might change, because we might be able to get max refinements of prototyped versions of polearms, but just keep that in mind. I have pulled a couple honorable mentions that might be good in the future, or if you don't have either of these 3, they could be viable. So the first one's going to be the Lithic Spear, which has not released yet. I just want to make that clear. Just based on its passive ability, it seems like it might be able to be a very strong option for Xiao in the near future. So it scales with attack percent and has one of the higher base attacks for 4-star polearms, but its passive is that for every character in your party who's from Leeway, the character who wields this weapon gains a 7% attack increase and 3% crit rate increase. This effect can stack up to 4 times, obviously, because you can have up to 4 members in your party. So if all 4 of your party members are from Leeway, this weapon will get a 28% attack increase and a 12% crit rate increase, which is a very, very strong passive talent. And on top of that, if you're able to refine this in the future, it could scale a lot harder. The next honorable mention I have is the prototype Starglitter. The reason it's an honorable mention is obviously because it has energy recharge. So the energy recharge portion is okay because it'll help Xiao get his ultimate faster, which is good. But the problem here is the passive ability. It increases his normal and charge attacks after using his E ability by 8% for 12 seconds, max 2 stacks, so 16% maximum increase on normal and charge attacks. The problem here is that Xiao is going to be doing a lot of plunge attacks, and I don't think this percentage increase factors in that. So this is why this is the first honorable mention. If you have nothing else, it might be viable, but it's not going to be the best in slot. The next honorable mention I have is the Dragonspine Spear. The reason I put this on the list is just because every person in the game should have it, at least one copy from doing the Dragonspine quests. You can see that it scales very, very hard with physical damage, but it doesn't have a great base attack, and on top of that, Xiao is going to be primarily doing animo damage besides his normal and charged attacks. And on top of that, the ability is not that great. It's okay with higher refinements, but I don't think it's worth it to waste prototypes to refine this weapon. I would rather use them on the Crescent Pike, which you'll get a lot higher damage output out of. But I just wanted to include this in there because it is a free-to-play option that everyone should have. That's going to be pretty much it for this video. I hope it helped you. If you found it helpful or enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. Otherwise, I will catch you guys in the next one.